Okay, everyone's set. All right, the Committee of the Whole meeting was called to order by Mayor Handley at 7 p.m. The Committee of the Whole of Council agenda, actually, just going to acknowledge that Councillor McMasters is joining us over Zoom. Just going to test your mic there, Jenny, if you don't mind. You can hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you guys.
We can hear you too. Thanks.
Perfect.
All right, the Committee of the Whole Council agenda for November 24th, 2025 was accepted with the following changes. Addition of item 3.3, closed item, net and business interest, ATIA, section 19, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, and section 29, advice from officials. Who would like to make the motion? Councillor Saab, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we'll get right into item 3.1, which is the non-residential subclass.
Okay, so I provided the information brief that we provided for 24th of November, and we have updated some of the content further to the from the previous meeting. Further to the November 17th information brief, administration is providing some additional information to help council with this policy. In 2020, council passed bylaw number 1339/20, which was a new bylaw intended to incentivize small businesses while also encouraging development of non-residential property that has been vacant for several years. In the time it has been in place, there's been varying degrees of success. A good number of small businesses have qualified for a decent discount, while there has only been a small amount of movement on development of vacant non-residential properties. In terms of numbers, the small business incentives are displayed here. You'll note again in reaction to the discount essentially being eliminated a year earlier, we only saw 27 properties file the appropriate paperwork, and we'd expect it to be lower again this year without a discount on offer. So in terms of what they equate to, it's 50% of the properties that are eligible, and discount has been between $11,000 to $12,000 in total value. It's been spread amongst the residential tax base in the years where it was in place. Under a bylaw, a small business property is defined that one that is owned or leased by a business that held a valid Town of Nanton business license attached to the property on December 31st of the preceding tax year and had no more than 10 full-time employees across Canada on December 31st of the preceding tax year. This was set and designed to identify and reward active small businesses on non-residential properties. In review of the non-residential properties, there are about 15 to 20% that don't qualify due to having more than 10 full-time employees. In 2024, a bylaw amendment changed things a little bit by qualifying that only properties within the mixed downtown use district be included. It also added a third subclass, that being multi-unit residential. So far, there have been no properties that have qualified, mostly because it's new and there's not much existing in the area in question. In terms of the vacant residential subclass, the numbers are fairly sparse. The two properties noted were taxed at twice the non-residential rate, resulting in additional tax revenue of approximately $2,500 in 2022 and 2023, respectively. And vacant non-residential subclass is definitely the most complex of the subclasses. It has to be located within the MDWT land use district as defined by the land use bylaw. It has to have improvements assessed at or above $200,000 in value within the Town of Nanton. That is because council has been fairly consistent that they don't want to see the punitive rate applied to bare land. It has to be subject to non-residential taxation in the 2 preceding tax years and had no valid municipal or regional business license attached to the property in the 2 preceding tax years. It had not been connected to water or sewer utilities or used under 10 cubic meters of water and sewer in the 2 preceding tax years, and it's not currently assessed as an approved residential or other permitted use that does not require a business license. And one more, has had no development permit approved in the preceding 2 tax years by the Municipal Subdivision and Development Authority. Now, this is lengthy because in discussion with lawyers when we initially started with this, on the recommendation of the 2019, what was it called again? It was a business consultant study that came in to look at ways to improve local downtown business, amongst other things.
Attention.
Yes, the BRNE study, that's right. It was, we wanted the bar for actually ending up on this list to be fairly high and not to accidentally catch active properties or properties that were developing in earnest. So all of these criteria are there to try and make sure as best we can that we're not unfairly targeting a particular property. So it's to try and be abundantly fair to a property owner rather than unfair that all these criteria are there. In summary, the purpose of the subclasses is as follows. For VNR, as I'll call it, stimulus for building owners to use their downtown commercial buildings for the benefit of the local economy, not to leave them vacant for the long term. The small business property subclass was specifically a tax break to encourage or reward small business in non-residential properties. Multi-unit dwelling, a tax break to incentivize an element of rental housing in new multi-unit dwelling construction that helps facilitate local economic needs. And the main discussion focus of that was labour market challenges for employers and them having somewhere for employees to live. These measures are on top of the non-residential tax development incentives. Together, they give this and future councils significant ability to stimulate or incentivize particular types of development and use. Enforceability remains a question that comes up a little around eligibility criteria in these classes, as some owners do pursue the workaround. We have found that since we brought this in. The peace officer now has the ability and will be authorised to enter a property to ascertain if that property, the owner having completed a declaration, is genuinely home to an operating business. It is important to underline that the bylaw provides a property tax varying power for council, but it does not commit council to a specific fiscal course of action. You can leave these powers alone. You can leave them set at 0. You don't have to use them, but they're in place if you want them. And with that, I'll let you ask any questions because we've attached quite a bit of information.
All right. So yeah, if you recall the last meeting, we had this and we thought it'd be better to just move it forward to committee of the whole so we can ask more questions, talk more broadly and kind of get the temperature of council, maybe make a recommendation to go to council meeting, to the next council meeting. Councillor Zopp, do you want to start us off?
Just one thing, I do have a question and it'll fall into some private matters. Could I ask that be asked in closed session?
We can certainly, so I'll need a motion to
I'll make a
add
motion.
this to closed session.
If I will make that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Thank you.
Motion carries. We can still continue the discussion, but we will have further discussion in closed session. Does anyone have any other questions? What's in front of you? I know it's kind of it's a very complicated bylaw to wrap your heads around. It took us a few years to, but the nuts and bolts of it are there to incentivize, but also have a bit of a hammer too to say enough is enough. Councillor Zopp.
I'll just ask the question, administration. is it working as intended?
Because we have a very small number of properties that fall into the vacant non-residential category, in the case of that one, it's very hard to judge. We have seen some responses from property owners in relation to the punitive rate in 2022 and 2023 when it did come on. So it hasn't been an entirely negative impact. It has stimulated conversation and action to some degree, but based on so few, it's very hard to evaluate, in all honesty. In terms of the small business property subclass, that again, it's a reward to incentivize small business in non-residential properties. I would say again, we've not been doing it long enough to assess it, whether it does anything significant or not. But it was a very useful alternative carrot to offer. If you were a property that was falling into VNR, we were able to say, well, if you get yourself out of that pretty quickly and you have a business in your property, you can go this other way and have a reward fairly quickly, a discount on your taxes. So in that sense, it's maybe worth having, but of the three, it's probably the most questionable in terms of its utility. The third, it's too early to say. We haven't set a discount yet, and we're not able to market anything yet. So, it wouldn't take effect until we actually had a completed multi-unit construction in the Westview Area Structure Plan area. My recommendation in my report was that be set to 50% so that we could actually market the benefit. It would have no real impact right now.
All right, thank you, Neil. And I would say it brought people to the table that were not at the table for quite a while. So, in my opinion, I do think it was effective in that way. And when we updated the bylaw last year, was it, Neil, or 2 years ago? We made it so that it was a little bit more tighter and it didn't capture those vacant lots because that wasn't really the intention. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll have further discussion in close then. And we'll go right to the capital budget there, Clayton.
Okay. Scroll there. All right, so we're here to introduce our first draft of the 2026 capital budget and get your feedback and hear what you think. So earlier this fall, staff began review of the current 5-year capital plan, and we began putting together a list of projects and purchases for the budget consideration. This list includes projects and purchases that staff feel are needed in order to maintain our existing infrastructure and to ensure staff can continue providing services in an effective and efficient manner. So the list is in no particular order. And these are new projects that would require new money. Towards the end, we've got some other projects that will be carryover from this year, and those already have money budgeted. So the first one is road rehab. This is done annually. Obviously very important to maintain our roads. The majority of the work is patchwork. In some cases, there is larger scale work. We did a road study this year. We haven't fully reviewed that, but that will guide this type of work. The request there is $125,000. That's more than usual, but we've got more patching and work that we'd like to get done in 2026. Sidewalk improvements, our request is $50,000. This is another annual item. Pretty straightforward. It's just really important that we maintain our existing sidewalk infrastructure. And this is in line with the past few years in terms of the dollar figure. 29th Avenue. So this is, in 2025, we completed a number of service line repairs along 29th Avenue. The north half, we did road work in 2025. So in 2026, we need to do the south half. All of that work was to help with our water loss. So there's another $50,000. And then the next one there, 20th Street service line replacements. This is just east of 29th Avenue. We want to further that work. Staff would like to do that just because there is suspicion that there's more leaking water in the area. So we've got more work to do there. The hydrant and valve replacement program, this year we're asking for $75,000 again. This has been ongoing since I've been here, so 5-6 years. We have a large amount of valves that have to be replaced, and this helps with water loss. It's just a good practice. Sewer relining, again, this is similar. It's been ongoing. This is a really good way to upgrade our older sewer mains in town. We'd like to continue that. The budget request is the same as last year.
Just an additional comment on that. I do have some additional information to introduce at the right point. I think it's important to mention that we've only really been relining sewer in Nanton for about, 4 years?
Yeah, this is like the third or fourth year.
So we've made good progress, but we're not like other communities that have been doing this for like a decade or more. So there's a lot of relining to do in Nanton.
Right. Westview storm pond dredging. So this year we had a survey done of the Westview storm pond. The survey tells us a significant buildup of sediment, and it is recommended to dredge that pond in order to remove that material and give the pond an extended life. There's a bit of a debate on how that dredging is done. And so the budget number we have there in front of you is quite high. But the initial talks we've had with one contractor sounds like it could be not a lot less, but less than what we've got in front of you there. Over at the campground, we'd like to put in a manhole, and this would help us in order to properly measure the amount of water that's going over to the campground and the Ag Society grounds. Once that's complete, we can put in proper metering, and then we can see actually how much water is going over there. Moving on to the arena here. Over the past few years, several pieces of new equipment have been purchased. The compound at the back, it works for storing equipment, but it's kept outside, which is not ideal for helping to maintain that equipment. We're suggesting a new storage building, which would be heated. It would allow inside storage and help extend the life of that equipment that we've purchased. So that's approximately $50,000. Keeping with the building theme, the Public Works cold storage building. There are 2 Public Works buildings. One of them is just cold storage, and again, this is not ideal in terms of keeping important equipment. This project would involve adding concrete, insulation, and heat to that existing building, and then this would create a more effective workspace and create a better space for keeping and maintaining equipment and vehicles. Moving on here, the yard waste area. We did do fencing a couple years ago. There's more needed. This would further enhance that, and particularly around the fire department area that's used, just to ensure that their space is kept separate and secure. So that's about $30,000. The large billboard that when you see when you come into town from the north, the lighting there is quite outdated and does not really provide the greatest of light. Staff would like to add new and improved lighting. that's solar powered. This will be a lot brighter and last a lot longer. Equipment and vehicles, pickup trucks. Typically, we try to replace older pickup trucks on a fairly regular basis, just to ensure the fleet doesn't get too old and we avoid those higher maintenance costs. As we move into 2026, there are 2 older pickup trucks, one used by the Parks Department and one by utilities. We're needing those replaced. So we're again proposing to purchase used vehicles. We've done that the past few years. Newer vehicles are just really, really expensive right now. The 2 older pickup trucks would be sold by auction at some point in 2026, and then these proceeds can go back into reserves. A skid steer. Public Works is again looking to replace one of the 2 skid steers. We replaced one in 2025, so the older one would be replaced in 2026. This ensures the equipment doesn't become too old. Trade-in value is a lot higher that way, and we'll have 2 newer skid steers if that's approved. All right, moving on to the wastewater treatment plant. So in addition to the large dewatering project, staff is looking to purchase a process pump and mixer. Due to our high sludge concentration, the process pump is needing replacement sooner than later. The newer unit will be built a bit differently, and once the dewatering project is finished, the pump won't have to work as hard, so it will last longer. In addition to that, we're in need of one of the 2 anoxic mixers, failed earlier this year. Staff have had a workaround in place, but this doesn't provide the thorough mixing required, so we're recommending the purchase of 2 mixers, one to have on hand to replace the other one that will eventually require replacement. The peace officer budget. We are suggesting a body cam. This is not mandatory at this point, but it's becoming clear to us that it probably will be
Yeah.
very soon.
It's looking like it's becoming a certainty in the very near future for community peace officers under their provincial appointment standards. It's also, I would say, not based on last year, but based on this year and the kinds of complaints that come up in the course of his duties. It's becoming increasingly evident that for the peace officer and for the public, we need some of these interactions recorded.
All right, moving on to the fire department. We're suggesting the continuation of an additional reserve contribution for a new fire engine that we believe will be needed in the next 3 to 5 years. So in 2025, council approved an additional $75,000 go into reserves for that. And so we're suggesting the same thing. That additional reserve contribution can also be put towards a future expansion / renovation of the fire hall, as this is on our 5-year plan, and that will also be needed. In terms of other potential projects, we've got a little bit of a list here. The industrial road project, this was discussed earlier this year. Council direction was that this be funded through a local improvement, whereby the municipality would cover 60% of the costs. That equates to about $700,000. Timing of this is a real unknown, so we've got it down here, but we don't know for certain. Residential land development, this has also been discussed. Always a possibility, depending on what council wants to do, but this comes with a very high cost as well. The THRC renovation, you guys know about this. A potential office move, if we reach an agreement with the RCMP, could mean renovation within the building here of approximately $1.6 million. Funding this would likely be a combination of reserves and borrowing. The medical clinic, the committee there has been working on getting a renovated clinic for quite some time. There is still a possibility that municipality could be asked to fund a portion of the renovation if or when it proceeds. Current estimate for the project is approximately 6 million. Gateway signs, both the north and south LED signs are starting to show signs of deterioration. Parts are proving difficult to source. So it could be argued that new gateway signs without LED messaging would be better, and this is something council may want to consider.
I will have a full request for decision ready on that matter for December the 1st, which doesn't necessitate immediate action, but I've got all the information council requires.
And then just a brief highlight here of some carryover projects from this year. The VIC rest area, this is a grant-funded project. There is potential for more reserve funds needed. We did go to tender late last summer, and the one bid that we received was quite high, and so we kind of deferred that one to next year. The library, we had some issues with leakage on the north wall and the roof. We did have that budgeted for this year, but it didn't get done. We've given the contractor go ahead in 2026. And then the emergency management transfer switch, that was a project that was supposed to be done this year. We didn't quite get there. There's some concrete work at the fire hall, the community center energy efficiency upgrades. We'll talk more about that on December 1st. I've got a info brief for you guys on that. And then continuation of the dewatering project. Based on our current tender, or the tender that we received this fall, it does look like there's a potential for more reserve funds for that project. So there's a lot there. So how do we fund all of this? Annually, the town receives.
Just make sure you're speaking into the mic.
Okay, so annually, the town receives provincial and federal money for capital-related projects. In 2026, based on 2025 numbers, we should receive the following. About 460,000 from the local government fiscal framework. That's provincial funding. And then federal funding, the Canada Community Building Fund, we should receive approximately 177,000. So outside of these two sources, the capital budget is funded by reserve dollars and also by a portion of taxpayer dollars. Council approved $551,000 in 2025 and 110,000 from taxpayer dollars. In terms of reserves, once we make our allocation to it at the end of this year, we're going to have approximately $6 million in reserves. So previous councils have done a very good job of funding that, and that's a big help. Borrowing is also always an option for funding capital. Borrowing costs have come down a little from a few years ago, but they're still quite expensive. And the annual debenture costs will impact the operational budget / taxpayer. The current borrowing capacity of the town is about 8.5 million. So in summary, the total proposed budget, we're just a little north of 1.621 million, and that's not including those other potential projects. Total revenue, if council approves the same reserve and taxpayer dollars, we'd be at just shy of 1.3 million. So we've got a shortfall of 323,000. So at this point, this is just first draft. We're really looking for feedback and direction. If there are other projects not included here that you would like to see, or if you feel anything here is not a priority, that's fine. We'd also appreciate council's feelings on how much from reserves should be utilized, or how much you feel comfortable utilizing, and how much does council want to tax for. This will just help us guide this will help guide us in scaling the budget back or forward and make revisions where appropriate.
All right. Thanks, Clayton. I appreciate this. So when you say how much does council want to tax for, do you want to break that down for our new counselors as far as how that conversation could look tonight?
So I guess, yeah, like if council wants to fund that total proposed budget of 1.62 million, we need to come up with an additional 323,000. That could come from reserves or it could be taxpayer dollars. As I mentioned, $110,000 came from the operating budget. So each approximately $100,000 increase in the operational budget results in an approximate 1% increase to taxpayer. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Clayton. All right, I suppose we will open it up for discussion and see where council's at, if they have any questions on these priorities that administration's brought forward. Councillor Saab.
Thank you, Mayor. My first question, but we're going to pay over at the RCMP, the 400,000 in engineering, and we pay whatever it's gonna cost, $1 million or whatever that budget's gonna be. We get it back in the lease, but it's still gotta come out of our budget. How is this and why is it not mentioned?
I guess the construction costs, if we do come to an agreement with the RCMP and they do renovate the existing town office, yeah, that's a one-time cost for us that once it's complete, that money comes back to us.
It comes back to us over the time of the lease, from what I understood. But we gotta fork out whatever it is, $1 million or plus that engineering cost now. How's that gonna play into this year's budget? I don't understand something there.
I think that has to be ironed out with the RCMP, but my understanding is the one-time cost to renovate, it would just be a lump sum that would come back to us.
Where's the money coming from? It's not mentioned in the capital budget here.
Yeah, I'll have
That
to
really
account
makes
for
it-
that.
Suddenly this isn't 323, it's 1,323,000.
If it's it will require some degree of borrowing until the town's done its necessary borrowing authorities. It's not really in the budget. There'd be a budgetary amendment come that time. It's the difference between a maybe and a certain project. It's not a certain project at this time.
If I could, Mayor?
Mhm.
So I thought that would be the answer. If we have to borrow the money for there, we also would have to, suddenly the clinic decides we got a green light, we're gonna borrow $1 million something there. And these other projects, where are we at with our $8 million debt ceiling here? We're gonna be, time all this stuff is done, we're gonna be sitting at 6 million? That doesn't. I feel like this thinking is heading to the town going into some serious debt that the taxes will have to take a big increase just to make that payment. That's my concern.
And I suppose all of that will be worked out in the lease agreements with both those two parties. So my understanding of it, and I'd love just some clarification from administration. So we take that debenture out, let's say for the clinic. It would be the responsibility of the leasee to pay for the interest and to pay for the debt. So yes, on paper, we hold the debt, but it is fully being paid by the leaseholder, both in the case of the RCMP and the clinic. So as far as it falling on the taxpayer, it doesn't fall necessarily on the taxpayer. All of that needs to still be fully fleshed out once we have certainty with any of these parties. But that was kind of the understanding that I had around that. The impact on the taxpayer, of course, would be that it limits our borrowing power for other projects, and that could be a conversation with the province if we need to expand it. But yeah, is that somewhat? I just want to make sure I didn't speak
Yes.
out of turn.
Yes, I mean, the concerns are relevant, but the problem has been since we started down this road with these potential projects is that until a grant comes along or a decision comes along for any of them, it's very difficult to provide firm advice on these questions until something changes. These aren't projects that are happening. Yes, there's a limit, and if it all happened in over the same 3-4 year period, yes, there'd be some prioritization and choices to make. But I'll say it doesn't seem that likely that absolutely everything will happen all at once, but famous last words. But yes, the town has limited borrowing capacity, and the tax base has limited ability to make debenture payments. So there will come a point where prioritization would have to play a role. Yeah.
Okay, good. For now? For now. All right. Any other questions, Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, so thanks for this. But when I'm getting the estimated costs, who's giving you the estimated costs? Because looking at it, every second one, it seemed, oh, it's probably gonna be more, it's probably gonna be more. I'm not a big fan of that. So if we've gone out for tenor and we've gotten one response, and that's what we're taking as what it's gonna cost. And there's a couple of things like even the Westview dredging. Like, did we not just dredge our pond? Like, or did that company not put a bid in?
The reservoir was just dredged in 2019, but that was much larger.
I'm just wondering, if does the company not provide that type of work? Did we not? I'm hoping like heck we reached out to that same company. We spent some money with them. Like even like the public works building, like to heat it and concrete it, you're at $125,000. I'm not sure the size of the building, but having just got done, I have a pretty good idea what concrete costs. And my fear is if we pass any of these, what I'm seeing right now is we're gonna get a whole bunch of requests for everything going over budget. Because I'm not sure, I'd like to know where these numbers are coming from, other than, are we getting one person? Are we asking around? Are we going to other towns that have recently completed a similar project? Like the pickup trucks and all that, because there's a market for that. You can go on there and you can check and see that kind of stuff. But I do have some concerns on some of the bigger, an outside storage building for $50,000. Where'd that number come from? Because are we asking around? Because even that number is that's pretty low. So that's my fears. We approve this, and then halfway through the year going, well, that's over budget, that's over budget, that's over budget. We need to pull from reserves. I'd rather, I don't know, under promise and over deliver. Not that I don't want to sandbag the budget, but I don't want this coming back. The other question I had, so currently the lights on that big sign are hardwired? They're not solar?
No, they're not, they were hardwired a number of years ago and.
Yeah, so I thought there was power there.
Yeah, but they, I can't remember, it was the previous operations manager stopped doing that and they bought a different lighting system, which hasn't worked out.
The hardwired system cost a flat fee of $2,000 a year to Fortis.
That's what the power was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because it's probably. same
Because
as
it's
the
over street lighting.
Okay, and that's why appreciate that. So we're looking to replace with solar, obviously.
Yeah, the existing light's solar, but it's not very effective. It was probably just a few $100
Okay,
acquisition.
yeah, it was.
But we need it a little, we would argue it should be a little bit brighter, but is it a massive priority? No, it doesn't need to be a massive priority.
Okay. Yeah, and everything else, I mean, it's not easy to get, to see all these projects, because to prioritize, they're all eventually, and I'm the one that says here, if we wait, nothing gets cheaper if you wait, so, and we're seeing that now because there's projects that we weren't able to get done and the price has already gone up. So, yeah, that's my only questions. I wouldn't mind getting a bit more of a solid number. It's discouraging that when we put it out for in the bid, we get one. Trying to figure out, like, that's a little concerning to me. But I wouldn't mind some slightly more solid numbers. Thank you.
All right. Counselor Miller?
Thanks. Agree mostly with Councillor Mitchell. The one that caught my eye too was the outside storage building for 50 grand. My 2-car garage cost me 50 grand, and you aren't parking any of our utility vehicles in there. So I question a lot of the numbers here, but my biggest concern with what we're looking at is this list of other potential projects. And honestly, I don't think they're potential projects. I think these are not if, they're when. And so we need to be prepared to fund these projects. The industrial road projects in particular, I think is necessary. We heard everything we needed to hear to confirm that, yeah, we need to do this. And you've all heard me speak to this residential land development issue. We were never going to progress with lot sales in Westview unless we start. So I'm not suggesting that we put in horizontal infrastructure for the entire area, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think there was a parcel in the southeast corner that's about 12 acres or something like that. And we've also had a conversation about lack of developers interested in our community, but there are builders. They're not developers, they're builders who are interested in building homes here in Nanton. And there's a couple builders actually in town right now that are building quality homes. And I would like us to approach them just to get a sense of, hey, would you be interested in acquiring some land, some new lots in Westview? So to all of these other potential projects, I would not be willing to make a decision on any of the above budget costs until we have some sense of what these are going to cost. If the road project is 700,000, okay. Residential land development, is it $1 million? Is it $500,000? Because again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's going to happen sooner or later. Otherwise, why do we have Westview? Why do we have an area structure plan for yet more property in Westview? Are we wasting our time and money? I hope not. But if we're going to do anything with all of this information that we're gathering, we need to know what the value is to actually do something with it. Medical clinic. Sorry, I'm snickering because from week to week, we just never know what's happening with the province. There was a major change again last week. The $6 million estimate is not correct. $6 million is the total cost of the project, but there are 3 partners in that. So our direct cost, Clayton, correct me if I'm wrong, would only be a little over 2 million. Right. So it's not 6 million. So not quite as painful as what it looks like there. And some of these other things, I mean, I'd be prepared to go through them with you and nitpick, in particular, the Westview Pond dredging, $500,000. If it was up to me, would I spend that? Probably not. There's lots of land there yet that we can fill up with water. So I don't see that as urgent, not like things like the THRC and the roads and Westview Medical Clinic. Those things, in my opinion, need numbers. We need to know what the potential costs are for those projects. I know it's going to be a scary number, but I think it's better that we have a sense of what it is than hiding in the dark and just ignoring it. I wonder if in my other life, I've worked with quantity surveyors who were pretty helpful in helping us determine cost of equipment and structure replacement. Don't know if they could help us with this or not, but might be worth talking to a quantity surveyor. That's like a cost consultant, if you will, without going out to tender. And they have the Ways and Means books. They have all kinds. In fact, some cost consultants, some quantity surveyors actually use industry construction costs or industry purchasing costs that they have access to. So some of their cost estimates can be pretty accurate in my recent experience. So I'll leave it at this. I would like more information attached to these other potential projects, because I certainly, for one, would not be prepared to make any recommendations on which of the above projects we would actually fund. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. And Councillor McMasters had some questions as well, so we'll go to her.
Oh, thank you. I'm just wondering, when we get those quotes, like when things are going out to bid, how does that work exactly? Like, do we just send out a big thing to a whole bunch of people, and if we just get one bid, then that's it? Or do we actually reach out to each of these companies and say, like, what can you do for us?
For some of the projects, we use what pricing that we had gotten from the previous year.
Right.
For other projects, we reach out to a contractor and get an actual price, and then once the project is approved, then we would go out to full tender. But normally, we just reach out to a contractor, or we reach out to other municipalities to say, what's the pricing for this type of project?
Okay, that makes sense. And then my next question, just real quick, with the manhole in the campground, why is that necessary, to see how much water the campground and the Ag Society is using?
Correct. The manhole may not be right in the campground, but right now we're not able to measure the water that goes to that side of the highway, I guess, that goes across the highway to the campground and the Ag Society. So we need to put in a manhole, and then proper metering equipment can go inside the manhole. We can't just meter the water.
Right.
That side of the highway is one of our significant question marks in terms of water consumption and loss, as some of the parties over there aren't metered.
And so, Councillor McMasters, it's all part of the effort of understanding our water system. And if we were to tie into the High River water system and there's unmetered properties, ultimately we would be responsible for paying for that. So we wanted to have a clear understanding of where is all of our water going. It's not that we would be billing the Ag Society or the campground, but it's more so understanding the usage and that it's not being taken advantage of, or that there isn't a loss in one of those lines as well.
That's perfect. That answered my question. Thank you.
And I guess, Neil, maybe just to further Councillor McMaster's question about, because we do have new members here, just talk about the procurement process. So if we do go out to tender, there's websites that we post for
Yes,
people to apply, and
for-
we have a bylaw as well.
Yes, we have a purchasing policy that sets out the rules, and I can circulate that if you'd like to take a look at it. It should be in your package, but I can send it out as a one-off as well. For larger projects, we tend to use a general website called Alberta Purchasing Connection, which puts these projects out into the general contractor world. And usually we get multiple responses back when we use that facility. We had one unusual exception this year with respect to the Mile 56 park work. And the one bid we received was very, very high, which is why we're waiting to have another go at a different time of the year. The manager of recreation felt that it went out at the wrong time, and that's why we got such a big proposal and very little interest. So, but usually we do get fairly competitive responses. In general, as local governments, we do suffer from the fact that we have to identify these projects and put numbers beside them in public. It gives anyone bidding on these projects a pretty good idea of what they should bid. And honestly, I don't know how we get out of that conundrum. It's a requirement for us to do these things. But is it an imperfect system? Yes. But we try and budget as close as we can to what we think the reality might be. Sometimes we under budget, sometimes we over budget. But we try and keep it close, and over the years we've gotten some pretty good savings and processes as well.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McMasters, are you good for now?
Yes, thank you. That's perfect. Thanks, Neil.
Strong.
Yes, so when I was looking at this, one of the things that stood out to me was the Westview Storm Pond dredging. I guess my question is that done very often? Is this the first time it's been done?
This would be the first time it's been done since it was put in.
Okay,
It is in parts now, it is very, very shallow. It's accumulated a lot of silt, and it's very difficult to get at the actual sources of the inlets or the outlets. So it is a project that doesn't 100% need to be done next year, but it is something that we've known has been on the cards for a while.
and is it something that then would continue on annually? Obviously not at 500,000, but on a semi-regular basis kind of thing?
It would probably happen a little more frequently. Our intention, I wish I had the manager of recreation here for this. Our intention is to implement some improvements within the storm pond to make the outlets a little more accessible in future.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of material. But is it essential you do it next year? No.
Okay, so and I agree with a lot of Dave's points when he was saying that nailing kind of some of these numbers down, if we're sort of jumping on either side of them but not really knowing, it just seems to be a little, at least from my standpoint, a little nerve-wracking. With the other potential projects, I don't know that I saw them as other potential projects, or that was my understanding. The industrial road project, I thought was something that was crucial in kind of working towards the development of our industrial area to encourage people to come and invest. THRC renovation, that just sort of seems to be kind of sitting on yeah, I'm trying to think of the right word.
On the RCMP's desk.
Yeah, we're back and forth. And then the medical clinic is, yeah, when it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. The gateway signs are kind of a pet peeve of mine. They seem to be throwing good money after bad. So those, I don't know. Can't we just put like lights over top of like Nanton and call it a day on those? I don't know. The residential land development, yeah, I don't see that as a top priority at this point in time. I know we have to be planning and moving ahead. However, I don't think that growth is always necessarily adding another land development at that point, or spending any money at this point on it. So those are just my thoughts.
All right, thank you, Councillor Strong. Councillors, do you have something?
Oh, it was just to I have a recommendation on the gateway signs for December 1st. Councillor Strong can be assured that municipal staff are of a single mind on the topic of these signs, but there are other considerations that council may have.
Okay. Councillor Shields.
So a couple of questions. These potential projects, I'm really seeing the majority of those of not if, but when. So are we putting money aside or into reserves, knowing that these projects are going to be a case? Yeah, maybe not for 20 years. Maybe the medical clinic's kind of like what the school was. I really hope not, but from Groundhog Day, it sounds like on a few times here. But we know that it's something that's going to happen. So is that not something that we should be planning and budgeting for anyways? And then same with the road. For the industrial road project, I was of the impression that this was something that was going to move forward in 3 phases, kind of, or there was conversation about that happening. But again, to me, that would be more of a priority than, say, a cold storage shed down at the town yard. I know it would be really nice for those guys to have that facility, but it's worked so far, and right, I think to me, for those guys, the equipment would be more of a priority than a storage shed. So yeah, there's just some things I'm seeing on this list that are more of, in my mind, more of a wish list than a want. So I think just some more information on the numbers of what things are actually really going to cost would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shields. Councillor Zopp.
Thank you. Just go back to the campground. You're gonna put the manhole in there then we can meter it? Does that mean they just get their water for free right now?
No, the Ag Society does have a utility account, and they do pay a utility fee. But yeah, we don't, it's unmetered, so they just pay a base rate.
Just on that, we have this gross amount of, we don't know where the water is. I'll tell you, a whole bunch of horses probably drink a lot of water, and I don't know what the base rate is on that, and same as the campground. I'm surprised we haven't done something there already, especially with this water loss. Maybe it isn't being lost, maybe it is being consumed. But anyway.
So would you say that would be a priority project for you then? We've got to get that figured out.
Yes, because whatever the base rate is, if it's 18 cubes like my house, I think they use a lot more than that. So whatever that true number is, obviously is gonna reduce this gross amount of water. We don't know where it's going. Maybe it's going to consume. And when I think of that campground being absolutely full in the summer, I can see a lot of water consumption there. So I think that should happen.
All right, well, we got one thing that's clear. So Neil, I'd seen you brought up the map for the lining projects. Could you bring that up again for us to take a look at?
This is the progress between 2022 and 2025. And that work is done based on areas of significant infiltration and particularly poor pipe condition that's discovered during camera work. Operations have prioritized certain streets that were in particularly bad condition and sections that were in bad condition. But you can see that for the older parts of town, we still have a very long way to go. So $100,000 only goes so far every year. But that said, $100,000 a year since 2022 has gotten quite a bit done.
And so the different colors are each year
Different
that
years,
they were
yeah.
installed. Is that what that is?
Yes,
Okay.
and I unfortunately can't bring up that corner of the graphic.
Okay, no worries.
But
But it's an important part of preventative maintenance as far as, I was just curious how much
Yeah.
more we have. How many more years of $100,000 do we have?
It'll be a very long process, and on the positive side, relining of the sewer main is a very good investment.
Yeah.
The estimate for useful life is pretty high. It can be as high as 75 to 100 years in some cases.
Wow.
So it's a much cheaper alternative to digging up the road and putting in new main.
Yeah.
I mean, that has its place on certain projects, but doing a street with new main, new water, and new road surface all at the same time is a $2 million plus project. And we've looked at that with engineers before, and it's a pretty tough sell for any of us.
Thank you, Neil. And then as far as the valve and hydrant replacement program, what stage are we at? Are we at 50% complete? Are we at 75? Do you happen to know?
Which one was it? Was it the one from, was it this one?
Looks like it.
Oh,
Our manager of operations provided a bit of a brief for us. He said currently there's 8 isolation valves in town that do not function properly. Obviously, this causes issues when trying to isolate a section of town for water work. What else? Yeah, we've got a bit of a list.
I think if you go back to that other email, Neil, the PDF, the net and water infrastructure map, that one. Maybe. That helped.
we do still have quite a lot of valves to change out. This is an area of work that wasn't done heavily until the last 5-6 years.
Mhm.
just like with the sewer, it's probably a long-term ongoing program, and unless we take an alternate approach, which is do a whole bunch more in 1 year.
Yeah, and I know in previous years, that's kind of what we've discussed is, it seems like such a vital project for us to better understand the flows of water um, and hopefully water loss even. And I know Bill was really aiming to isolate certain parts of town once that system was complete. So that's where my question is coming from. Is
So I'm just reading his communication here in response to the questions. 3 of those valves, along with 2 old hydrants requiring replacement, are located along Highway 2 northbound, which poses a challenge. And that's something that Bill has identified as we've gone along. There are some serious problems, he believes, under the highway,
okay.
particularly the northbound highway. And those are bigger projects simply because it involves traffic and maybe some drilling underneath. So there is still quite a bit to do there, and I know he'd like to do more. There's a very strong, he does have a strong suspicion that some of our water loss is around Highway 2 North. But again, without us being able to zero in on exact locations, we just have to try and replace old valves and sections of line and hope that we come across something. But yeah, there's still a lot to do.
Mhm.
And I would certainly encourage us to continue in that vein or do more if we can. The water loss question is a very difficult one in terms of the regional water project.
Exactly. And that's why I was wondering if we need to even put more into the budget for valve replacement, given what we're striving for.
Definitely a possibility.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I know at Alberta municipalities, there was a resolution that passed, and maybe council can fill in the gaps of my memory, but it was around fire engine replacements and the necessity for low use fire engines, especially in smaller municipalities, and the costs of them are just getting so high that are there options as far as extending the lifespan and the requirements for replacing them in such a regimented way? It's just becoming so unsustainable for small towns when we know they're still in perfectly fine condition. All right.
As we sell our engines bought by another small town to use in their fire department.
Yeah, it's like it goes to a smaller town, like 1,000 people, right? And so the resolution passed quite profoundly. And I know they'll be looking into that at AB Munis, but I'm sure our fire chief would have a few thoughts on that matter as well. Councillor Saab?
Thank you. Clayton, 14 hours ago while you sat there, you said, as we do the budget and the capital side, it's about 1% for every 100,000. I thought it was 1% for 30,000. What is it?
I may have spoke out of turn. I'd have to double check for you.
No, it's just I was under the impression that that's kind of our benchmark, how we measure it.
That's what I've been putting in all my newsletters, so
But
we'll confirm
you
that.
did
come
say
Friday.
1 per 100,000, and I
All right. So the peace officer body cam, I definitely felt was an imperative item. Just knowing how much more he is out there and what he's exposing himself to on a daily basis. We've never had a peace officer of this caliber, I should say. Maybe that might be a little harsh to our other peace officers. So keenly interested in getting tickets and putting himself in front of people. So I think for me, that's a really important expense.
This has been the second year with this particular peace officer, and in year two, we've started to see some of the, the kind of typical pushback RCMP officers and peace officers see in the community. And we get into the very much into the sort of he said versus he said kind of situations when we get the very rare complaint. And I naturally want to protect my staff, and I really, whether or not it becomes mandatory, it's becoming necessary. Most peace officers do have them.
Mhm. And as far as the Westview Storm Pond, I think given the amount of kind of potential items that are just on the cusp, I do wonder if we were to put that off for a year, until we have certainty on these larger projects that are just all waiting for leases to be signed. Is that something that operations thinks could handle if we were to put it off for another year or two?
I think it could be, depending on the approach, the funding situation could be different, and I think the manager of recreation is still trying to figure that out a little bit. But I don't think anything drastic would happen for another year, especially if we had a fairly dry year.
I think then we'll have a better idea of where we're sitting financially and what's coming from where, and then we can kind of do a lot of these extra projects. And I'm going to be cautiously optimistic on our clinics, and we'll see where the RCMP are. I do think the RCMP project's going to happen as well, and the industrial roads. With the industrial roads being written as potential, do you need a decision from this council on that project? Because the previous council was of the mindset that we would proceed with that,
No,
that
we-
we need
we-
new
we-
direction.
We have the necessary resolutions at this point in time to formulate and bring forward the draft bylaw materials.
Okay.
I do want to have a closed discussion with council regarding that project tonight, just very briefly. But no, we're ready to take that forward if council is.
Okay. All right. Any other questions at this time? I look forward to the entrance sign conversation and kind of seeing, I know they've been a thorn in our side for many years, so hopefully we can find a long-term solution for those. I'm sure you do. We need to have something, Shauna. Okay, any other Councillor Saab?
Thank you. So to me, the request on the arena outside storage building and the public workshop. I've been around this equipment my whole life. What has to be considered when you store it outside, when you store it inside, it creates a number of problems. The biggest one is condensation, which affects water in the systems and whatnot. Countless companies in the oil patch, they keep their stuff outside. Things don't happen when you have that warming up all night and going out in the morning. So taking all that in consideration, I view those two things as a luxury item. Yes, I want to see the guys to go to work and they come in and they can get into a warm machine. But in trying to maintain good budgets, if you're not going to do the Westview Storm thing, maybe. But other than that, I think that's just not worthwhile doing at this time.
Thank you.
Dave's been around this equipment and knows just as much about it as I do concerning that aspect of running equipment and keeping it inside warm. But
Yeah, and I got the different.
Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, sorry. we have more equipment down the golf course than just about anywhere. It's all inside. And your lifespan on on your equipment is considerable if it's kept out of the elements. It's not so much the warming, yeah, inside the building, that's just gotta take care of, you gotta move air. But your equipment will last longer if it's kept out of the elements. If it's not covered in snow, if it's not sitting and getting beat down by the sun or in the rain, your equipment does last longer. I look at that as an investment in our equipment, as long as there's procedures and everything followed as far as not to get in the weeds, to make sure that the equipment, that's the selling point and all that. And I'm not sure about the storage down at the main yard, what it's used for, whether it is equipment or if it's material, whatever it is. But I get what you're saying as far as bringing equipment in and out, dragging it out. If you don't maintain it, the building will deteriorate very quick. But that's in design. You need air movement, you need that kind of stuff. You need proper drainage, sumps, all that kind of stuff, so everything to flow in. But your equipment being held inside, you'll extend the life of your equipment if it's maintained. I'm assuming that's what I don't think it's about getting in a warm tractor. I think it's about getting in a vehicle or a tractor that's going to run. So, yeah, like I said, all the stuff and the stuff that was left outside of the golf course, it looks like it was left outside the golf course.
So Councillor Mitchell, you would be for the arena outside storage, but not necessarily the upgrades to the storage at the Public Works.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again, they do have storage down there. They're just wanting to, like Councilor Shields said, they're wanting to make it nicer, but the stuff is kept inside. The warming and that kind of stuff is one thing. In the wintertime, I get that, but they all plug in. To me, it's just getting them out of the elements day to day. That's the selling point to me. But yeah, the stuff here.
Get it in.
Yeah, and it even storing the equipment here, I've noticed, I guarantee it saved the guys a pile of time getting equipment, because you're not crossing the highway, you're not driving it all the way down. It's to here. Parks are all here, so I don't mind that idea. But yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
So I guess in that same line, I'm looking at, so the pickup trucks, and I don't know what age they are currently, but are 2 new ones necessary in this upcoming year, just based on all of the other stuff that we've kind of got. Surfing
We can certainly provide that information. We rarely buy our trucks brand new. They're usually secondhand vehicles that are in good condition.
Okay, I thought if we're talking about 50,000 being an issue, like for outside or inside storage, 100,000 for 2 trucks, and I don't know if if 1 year would make a huge difference in a trade-in value or an auction value or not. I don't know.
Part of it is maintenance costs
Is it?
too.
Okay, great.
The 2 vehicles in question are, yeah, this year we had to put more into maintenance than we would have liked, and
Oh.
so.
Okay, fair enough. That was just.
No, that's a good
I
point.
always
Thanks.
have to ask twice if I want.
Councillor McMasters.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the storage shed at the rink. I agree with Dave in that when stuff is stored, it's going to last longer. But down at the town shop where you guys were, where they're saying there is a storage place there, but it's just not heated. And so is that they're just wanting to put the heat back into it, or do we have to build a whole new thing down there? Or was I reading something incorrectly?
No, it's an existing cold storage building that we have that we would like to insulate and heat and put concrete into.
So what's being stored in there at the moment?
A number of pieces of equipment. I don't know for certain.
Yeah.
I'd have our Public Works manager speak to that, or I can get more information on that. I don't know exactly what they keep in there.
No, I was just wondering, just to ensure that it is actually equipment that would benefit from having the warmth, I guess, of it being stored in, or if it was just, I don't know, other kind of stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be kept warm.
Clayton's just taking notes there, Jenny.
No, it's all good.
He'll come back with information next time we talk about the budget.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any thoughts, considerations? Counselor Mitchell?
Yeah, I just have one question. Getting back to the dredging of the pond, you mentioned the in and the out, like where, so the concern there, what is the concern as far as it's going to get to the point where sediments and then the level of the water? Because the water runs, it gets to a certain level, it runs down to boomers, then it runs, it all ends back in the creek. But
One of the storm lines in particular gets blocked quite a bit.
okay, so it's an actual line that
Yeah,
that drains,
from
okay.
from I think it's from Westview Drive down the side and into the pond. They spend quite a bit of time trying to clear it with limited success, and it's largely because the level of silt is so high in there in the pond itself.
When are we due for the raw water reservoir sludge? Because we did that in 2019, right? So do we have an idea of when we'll be tackling that again?
I would need to check with the manager of operations on that, but I believe he's not concerned about the levels of silt in it at the moment.
Okay.
If we started to become concerned about the levels of silt in it, we would have to look at some kind of dredging. Yeah. At the moment, its capacity is good.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that's just what we were talking about in 2019 when we were doing it. We're like, we can't let this go for another 20 years. We want to make sure we have a system in place that we catch it at a reasonable time. So similar to Councillor Strong's earlier statements on the Westby Pond, that is there a cycle or is it just kind of circumstantial? We don't necessarily know how much silt and debris we're going to get in those and how quickly it builds up. Okay, any other questions at this time? Clayton and Neil, do you?
Just going back to your question about the impact to the operational budget. Yeah, so the last few years, we've been around that $3 million. So a 1% increase, yes, is $30,000, not the $100,000 that I had spoke to.
I don't have to put out a message and correct my last. Okay, thank you for that, Clayton. But that is good perspective though, because $110,000, that's, just over 3% in taxation. So if we're looking to make up shortfalls, we always want to keep that number in mind, right? So, all right, is there anything else or do you kind of have a bit of a temperature of where council's at?
No, I think we've got good feedback in terms of what we can provide in terms of further information and where we can narrow it down. I think Clayton and I both knew it was a fairly ambitious list that various department heads had given us this year. So we'll take that back and we'll bring something new back to you.
Yeah, and I think the main consideration is all these other looming projects that we are being very optimistic about. But I also, we've got several other projects that have rolled over from last year. So I know there's a lot already on everyone's plate for next year too. That's where my mind goes as well.
As a reminder as well, in terms of residential development, we currently have two very large grant applications submitted to the federal government, one for Westview and one for the Northwest Collector Sewer project. Until we know the outcome of those grant applications, and hopefully we won't be waiting 2.5 years like we did with other recent federal programs. Council's in a position if it either moves forward with something on its own, or waits to see if 50% federal dollars come along for a scenario. I can only counsel wait a little longer and see if that federal money comes, because it is 50% of quite large projects. But I know some of you are really keen to get going with more work in Westview.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder of that grant. Okay. All right, well, we'll leave it with you guys. So what, for our new counselors, what can they anticipate next as far as the budget process?
I'll probably come back next week, just because we want to get this done in December. So I'll come back to you next week, and then if there's further amendments needed, we have the December 15th meeting as well.
Perfect.
And I'll probably come back with the 5-year plan, because we have to have that in addition. Which, that one, it's nice to have that, but it's not so critical that it's written in stone, because each year we review it and make changes to it, but we have to have something in place as per the MGA.
Well, and that's always where these extra items that we might have cut today could go into that 5-year plan. So we'll go from there. Counselors up.
Thank you. This is something from Mr. Miller in my mind. About this whole thing of getting on with getting this done, the heck with waiting for that decision from the RCMP. What's the impact to this budget if we do that idea? We just carry on and get this done. How's our numbers gonna look? Like maybe when you come back in December, you tell us where are we going to be and not wait for the RCMP.
All right. Thanks, Counselors up. Okay, so that's everything we have so far is the capital budget to be continued next Monday. Oh, sorry, Sean.
No.
Counselor Strong?
So just for my understanding, the 2025 carryover projects, those have already been budgeted for, like they're going ahead regardless?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
I always look at those as just kind of capacity as well as far as, everything
Excellent.
else that they have. Yeah, it's no new money for those projects. Okay, so with that then, we will have a motion that all written reports as recorded on the agenda November 24th, 2025 be received for information and filing. Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Shields, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to go into closed session at 8:27 pursuant to Section 1972 of the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, Chapter M26, and the Access to Information Act, ATIA, as follows. Item 3.3, closed item net and business interests, ATIA, Section 19, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, and Section 29, advice from officials. And then we did add item 3.4, which Councillor Stop added, which I would imagine is also under ATIA Section 19, disclosure harmful to business interests. Could I have a motion to go into closed, please? Councillor Strong? All in favor? Motion carries. And Jenny, just hang tight for a sec. As far as keeping Jenny, can she just stay on that line?